Hello, everybody. My name is Courtney Susan Parson, and I am 42 years old, and I am a senior at National Louis University. I am actually attending to receive my bachelor degree in early education and my minor in special education. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about myself, and I chose to talk about how I grew up because that's had a huge impact on my life and why I've decided to become a teacher. First of all, I am a mom. I have three children. My oldest is 16, my son, Brennan, and I have a son that's also 12. He's going to be 13 soon. And I have a daughter that is 7. And they are my life. They are my number one job before anything else. I also have 4 stepchildren with my boyfriend, and we don't live together, but I am active in their life a lot. And so I guess I can just begin with my story. Basically, when I was a little girl, I was about a year and a half old. My mom and dad were married. My mom was attending school at a university for her teaching degree. My dad was working full time at the time and planned on going back to school to become a teacher as well. She had a brain aneurysm when I was a year and a half old, and she was put in a coma. She was in a coma from the brain aneurysm for about a year and a half after that. They called it a semi-toast coma because she could still open her eyes, but she didn't know what was going on, and her brain activity was pretty minimal at the time. So she was kind of in a sleep with her eyes open. So I recall many memories of me going to the nursing home as a little girl, like 3 years old, and visiting my mom and asking why she was still sleeping and why wouldn't she wake up. And it was I want to say traumatic, but that's just what my normal was. So at the time, I didn't realize it was traumatic until later. Um, and then it went from there to my grandfather retired early to take her out of the nursing home where she was staying and decided to get her an apartment because she did eventually um, come out of the coma, and she was paralyzed from the neck down from the coma or from the aneurysm, but then she was able to eat and speak very hard to understand, but slurred speech, um, kind of like a stroke patient would have. And so she was paralyzed from the neck down, and my grandfather retired early and hired CNAs and aides to help him. And so I would spend my weekends, every other weekend, sometimes every weekend, with my mom and my grandparents. And then the other part of the week, I'd be with my dad. So I was basically raised by my dad as a single parent until he remarried when I was 9. Um, so I would help my grandfather by feeding my mom because she couldn't use her hands. She had one arm that she could use very slightly, and so I would help her, with her spoon and feed her. I would help bathe her at times with my grandpa. That's how I grew up with my mom. So after she passed away when I was 12 from complications of the aneurysm. And I had my stepmom in my life, but I was very angry and didn't really deal with my feelings properly in high school. I just kind of shoved them away. And I realized after high school how much I needed my mom, and didn't have her. So it was very important to me to do what she never got to do, which was, work with kids and have my own kids and be a mom to my own children. And so I did go to school for a couple of years and got my CNA and was planning on going back to get my nursing license, and then decided eventually that wasn't for me. Once I had children and I worked as a CNA for almost 15 years, I decided that wasn't for me anymore. So I wanted to be home more with my kids after I got married. And now I am a paraprofessional. I actually worked at KinderCare when my daughter was a baby because I wanted to be home more with my children, and I fell in love with teaching. I worked as a preschool teacher there, and I loved being with kids. I loved working with kids, especially kids with special needs. There's always a couple of them in every class, even in a general ed setting, and I work really well with them. I was around, a mom that was paralyzed from the neck down my whole life, so that was my normal. And my father worked with developmentally disabled adults as well my whole life. So I was always around people with disabilities. So that was my comfort zone. So I feel like that's why I finally, at 42 years old now, I'm finishing my degree and pursuing what I wanted to do originally, but didn't realize it. It took me many years to figure out what I wanted to do. So yeah, so I feel like that is what has led me to where I'm at now. My grandmother was a huge influence on me. My mother's mom, she was a professional, or excuse me, she was an English professor at a community college here in Rockford where I live. My whole life, and she introduced me, to the joys of teaching. And my dad went to school to be a teacher but never finished. He actually passed away about 7 years ago of a heart attack. So he never finished what he started. My mom got her degree but never was able to teach. So I feel like I'm completing what my parents never got to finish, as well as being a mom to my kids, which is my number one thing. I always want to be there for them. Since I didn't have that as a child with my mom, I want to make sure that that's my number one thing in life. And so I try to teach my kids and my students that we're a family and that I love them. And I try to be very open minded and not judge people and realize that everybody has a story. I have a story, you have a story, and we all have a story. And I try not to ever judge a book by its cover, because you never know what anybody has gone through in their life that has made them who they are today. So thank you for listening to my story, and I can't wait to hear your guys' stories. Thank you. Bye.